It's on mornings like this that I'm glad I'm retired, I think, because I don't have to go to work and it's a beautiful day outside. Is the same thing the case in Donegal, Pat?
Not really, Jude. It's actually quite overcast and it's
Uh,
dull.
oh, well,
Yeah.
there you are. You see, it's a dull sort of a county, but just as dull sort of people do, But no, what I was going to say is, in one way, I'm very happy to be retired. But another way, God, there was something about a Friday was very nice. You would know that as an
Ah, yeah.
editor. We had the work done. Like
Yeah.
Friday, as far as I was concerned, somehow it was the weekend began Friday morning, in a sense.
You Jude, when you went in on a Monday morning, Friday seemed a long way away.
Yeah.
Your week was delineated or defined, or whatever the word is. You started on a Monday, but you knew come Friday the week was behind you and you were looking into a couple of days off.
Yeah.
That was a lovely feeling. Now,
Yeah.
you see, when you're retired, some days you don't know what day of the week it is at all.
Oh, well, who are you telling? Who are
Uh,
you telling? 10, 19 to 10 when I come on here, I say, oh, this is a lovely Monday morning. It's Friday instead. Anyway, yeah, I do sort of regret that. I wonder if I'd have the same appetite for work. Would you have the same appetite? I think.
Not at all, Jude. No, far from it. As I think, as the Bible says, there is a season,
Uh,
and at a certain after about a certain age, you just don't have the energy anymore, and I don't think you
uh,
have the, you know, you, when you're young, you'll tilt at one mills. When you
uh,
reach 65, 70, that fire's gone.
oh God, it's appalling that. That's awful. Awful, Pat. We're getting
Yeah.
doddeриer and doddeриer. Um,
Nah, what do you call it? As the Chinese says, there's a library of wisdom and the elder generation. I like to think I can sit and give advice.
hmm. The Chinese also said if you stand beside a river and watch for long enough, you'll see the bodies of your enemies floating past.
Uh,
I like that one better.
maybe I'm not bloodthirsty, but maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
It beats fishing anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get down to brass tacks. We've got a number of things here. There's one that catches my eye. It involves a very big question, I think. J.P. Mcmanus, as you probably know, has
Mm.
declared that he's going to, or maybe he already has, sent various sums to various clubs or counties in the GAA throughout Ireland. And he's giving away up
Yeah.
to 30,000 quid to individual clubs, I think. Um, and it's been greeted with less than wholehearted enthusiasm, which to my mind is a very, I don't know, it's a bit tight-bummed way of responding to what is an amazingly generous thing, something they didn't have to do. Would you see it that way, Pat?
There's two ways of looking at this. He's given a million to every county boards in the country, so that's 32 million. So
Wow.
I think Sligo has the least number of clubs.
Uh,
So the clubs in Sligo are going to get something like 30,000.
yeah.
Cork has the most. I think it's I can't remember what it is. But they're only going to get about 2 or 3 thousand each club because there's so
Yeah.
many of them.
Like
But
only
but
two or
anyway,
3,000.
uh, still it's 2 or 3. It'll buy them a kit if nothing else.
Yeah.
But no, one of the things I remember having this great discussion with my brother-in-law many years ago as we were walking around Inch Level.
Uh,
It's a wee forest down there. And his claim was a lot of these big rich guys don't pay. They have all sorts of tax dodges
yeah.
and they give money away. And I'm not saying, by the way, for a second, I don't know what JP McManus's tax status is, so I'm not making any allegations against him.
Oh, certainly not, Pat.
Basically,
No allegations on this site. Yeah.
you see, I don't know what his tax status is. So
Yeah.
anything I said, I don't even mean it to be illegal. I don't, neither do I mean it to be offensive.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, a lot of these rich guys give these what do you say philanthropic donations while
Yes.
avoiding tax, and
Aye.
it makes themselves look good. Jude, I'll give you a simple example. When I was out of the Journal, the Bank of Ireland and Allied Irish banks and all would used to take out ads. One time I noticed something was going on. What they were doing was they would get our photographer to come along into Waddy Glen's GA club or Clonmany GA club or Letterkenny GA club,
Yeah.
and they would present handing over a strip, a football strip to the club.
Hmm.
So what they were doing was they were stopped advertising, but they were getting our photographers to come along. They were getting a double hit. In other words, they were buying a kit and they were making themselves out looking good in the community.
Hmm.
By St. John's GA Club in Letterkenny have just received a kit from Allied Irish Bank.
Yeah, yeah.
In other words, you know, it was very clever PR. Well, that's
Hmm.
in a sense that's what's going on here. Or there's some people. I think the Social Democrats TD Jennifer Whitmore yesterday said that this thing about she has reservations about very rich and very wealthy people,
Yes,
you
there
know,
was a number. Yeah.
extending largesse on the name of that they're philanthropic, when in actual fact a lot of them over the years are not paying what they should be in tax.
Well, you see, I made a note of the quotation of one. Somebody said that it was philanthropy replacing tax payments. Well, I disagree with
Yeah,
that. I think it's
yeah,
philanthropy replacing nothing, because
yeah,
these guys are not paying, they're paying minimal tax. But, Mcmanus says, I paid my taxes and I set up a business abroad. Hey, on his shoes and in anybody's shoes, I would say none of us wants to pay more tax than we can avoid. If
I'm not
they
arguing that.
can employ accountants who are going to be able to take advantage of every loophole, well, to be honest with you, good luck to them, whether they have an awful
Yeah,
lot of money or whether very little. Come back to
yeah,
your other thing, and that's true indeed, where you get the reflected glory, where you get, somebody said you're doing good with thunderous stealth. You're giving a kit to some wee club, and they're mentioning your name, which would cost a lot if you actually were putting it in as an ad. But again, that's
yeah.
just the way of the world. That's how things are organized. I just think it's a wee bit silly to start saying, oh, this guy, look at all the money he has and look at the taxes he's not paying. I agree. But the people who should sort that are not the guy who's not paying the taxes. It's the guys who are making the regulations about taxes. If I
Yeah.
had
Well,
billions, I'd be in
in
Switzerland as
fairness,
well.
yeah. And Jude, I'm not. The reason I say I'm not knocking it because I tend to agree with what you're saying. And the other side of the story, Jude, 32 million is not insubstantial, you know, or
Mm,
inconsequential.
mm.
32 million is a lot of money to be given. And apparently in 2018, he gave every county board 100,000. So like that was 3.2 million. So he's paying a fair way of tax, or not tax, but you know he's making fair old donation. The
Ah,
second thing, as you rightly point out, he set up his business in Switzerland. He
mm.
doesn't. It's not in Ireland, and he has been very generous to a lot of people.
Ah. Well,
So that's the other side of it. So I'm not knocking him for that.
well, there are people who say, you see, that what I don't know how many million you said there, but really that would be just a handful of money, small change, back
Yeah,
pocket money to the likes of JP McManus. So I
yeah,
wouldn't get too congratulatory to him that he has done
yeah,
this. It's not really
yeah,
costing him any money, and it's casting him in a good light for most people, certainly for the clubs
yeah,
that
yeah,
receive it.
yeah,
So now, right throughout Ireland, there are people who are indebted, in quotation marks, to him. Now, that's a nice
yeah.
position to be in. Uh, I just find him an interesting guy. He also, I gather, lost something like 3 million over 3 days of gambling. He's a bit of a
Yeah,
gambler. And
yeah.
you're forever hearing of his horses winning this race and that race.
These,
But I still come back to that thing where I object to it because it's got a long history. Like if you think of the Carnegie libraries,
well,
like in Dublin, where I was living in Rathmines when I was a student, there was over the door of the local library was Carnegie Library.
these yeah,
Written in stone. And I used to
yeah,
think, who's this Carnegie guy? And then you realize there's this whole tradition in America,
yeah,
including, incidentally, Atlantic Philanthropies with
yeah.
I've forgotten the guy's name now, but
Chuck Finney.
Chuck Finney, that he gave away all his money. But I don't know. I don't think he was particularly trying to avoid paying taxes. But
No,
even
he
he had
wasn't. So
been.
he gave away all his money, you
But
know,
if they
that he
had,
would have paid in tax with him. Uh,
so that's what JP McManus is now doing. It's just that he hasn't given as much away, hasn't given it all
uh,
away. And I really think when people say, "Oh, this is bad, terrible," and he's just a hypocrite and so on, it's not illegal. So I think people should stop clutching their pearls at this stage and just accept the fact. What they need to do is to change the law. I agree. Change the bloody law. If guys are earning billions, change the law so that some of that money can come in, not just to GAA clubs, maybe them too, but for things like health and education and all the rest of it, where people are struggling. But they're interesting guys. As somebody said one time, if a guy walks into a room and you know that he earns, say, 70,000 a year, you say, oh, that's not a guy. And if a guy walks in and you know he's earning 7 million a year, you look at him carefully, don't you? It's horrible.
Absolutely.
It's horrible, but it is impressive when somebody's very rich.
Yeah.
I kind of like Mcmanus. I suppose one of the reasons I like him is that was it not him that had a case with Ferguson, Alex Ferguson, about a horse?
Yeah. But the horse.
What was the details of that? McManus won it.
Vaguely, I think they gifted what do you call him, Ferguson the horse, but Ferguson then tried to claim that he had the rights to the stud fees as well, and they said no, that was not part of the deal. That the horse during its racing lifetime was his, but the rest of it, and it all went to court, and anyway they won because they him and J.P. Magner, or what do you call him, John Magner, I think they it was one of them top, very very top racehorses. So the stud fees were massive.
It seems a wee bit sort of. I'm kind of surprised that J.P. McManus won that, because you think if you did he sold the horse? Did he? Was it to?
No, he gifted the horse.
He gifted the horse. Well, if he gifted the horse, it does seem a bit mean not to gift the horse's sperm as well.
Well, I don't remember the full details. If J.P. McManus won the case, I presume it was covered legally when they gifted the horse. That and it stood at the sperm would return to J.P. McManus.
Well, that's the thing, you see. It seems to be they talk about splitting hairs. This is splitting a horse off in an important area. Okay, let's come to something that's really close to your heart, I know, Pat. And there's an article in the Irish Times today which is headed "The Modern Irish Journalist: Stressed, Abused, Resilient, Idealistic." Would that be a description of you at your pump, Pat, when you were the
absolutely, Jude?
You were stressed, you were abused, you were resilient, and you were idealistic.
Aye, Jude, being a journalist is a tough job. I knew a guy that several years ago, his daughter, I think she's now in the medical profession, but he told me one time she was interested in being a journalist. Now, this guy was a journalist himself, and he told me that he told her absolutely no way, that it was not a career, if you're sort of sensitive. So, and he steered her. I'm not sure what she's doing, to tell you the truth now. I think, but the bottom line of it, he says, from his own experience, he wouldn't let his children do it. Like, Jude, everybody thinks journalism was very glamorous and all the rest of it, and you're meeting and greeting the rich and the famous and all the rest of it. But what people don't remember or don't take into the equation, journalism is by and large, unless you're at the top of the tree, very badly paid. There is a lot of stress, and there's an increasing now, Jude, threat level, both legally and physically. The number of journalists I've heard have been assaulted in recent times. And also everybody's now very, very trigger happy when it comes to the laws of libel. Jude, you have to nearly talk about belt and braces. You probably need triple belt and braces now. I know certain newspapers now won't cover anything unless they nearly have got legal guarantees beforehand. So it's become very sort of a tough area to go into. And also, Jude, look at what's changing now. Look at your social media. Everybody's a journalist these days. So, and I think I mentioned to you before, remember the fire in London at the Tower Fire? I can't remember the name of the building.
Yeah, Grenfell
70
Towers.
people died. Grenfell Towers. I remember watching Sky that day and said, anyone with video footage, could they please send it to us? And I remember thinking, so everybody's a journalist now, or phone footage. Jude, the days of a cameraman being a professional, reading the light and all the rest, that's gone. Shorthand and typing, they're gone. Well, not typing, but nowadays somebody just puts a under a sort of recorder under your nose. Everything's changed, Jude, and it's not for the better.
I still think it'd be a lot of people would find it an interesting and well, you yourself have said, Pat, back in those days anyway, that there was never a day you went into work that you didn't want to go in. that it was a
Right,
really
exactly. I loved it,
hugely
but
absorbing.
I think it says, I think social media and the current climate. Jude, look, I'll give you an example. Gaza, there's something like 66 or 67 journalists killed already in that
Yeah,
conflict. You
yeah,
know, and that's okay. That's an extreme example. But and see in London now, maybe it was a topic. You know, like in Ireland now, Sinn Féin are getting a lot of hassle for it, but there are now increasing libel. There's no doubt about that. Uh, now, other politicians keep it nice and quiet, but many other parties are also like. Jude, I remember getting threats from various. Oh, I didn't say it, or I didn't do that, or I didn't mean that, and all the rest.
mm-hmm.
Now it was done under the table, but it's becoming now as much more overt. There, the label thing has become a real issue for many journalists. And by the way, Jude, when you get a personal label letter where it says we're suing you personally, it means they can take your home if
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
pay up a lot of money.
That's right. Well, in my own small way, don't forget that social media is also governed by certain laws. I know that people say it's the Wild West and all the rest, but I have had the occasional solicitor's letter for having, maybe sent a tweet or done a blog or
Yeah,
whatever. Uh, Thankfully, it worked out okay. But here's the point. First of all, this letter or this article in the Irish Times about the Irish journalists being stressed, abused, resilient, idealistic is
yeah,
really about Sinn Féin, I believe.
yeah,
And they do come out explicitly at one point and they say that Sinn Féin representatives are threatening libel actions. And that is claimed that they are using the libel laws to shut down public debate and avoid media accountability. Well, I take a wider view of that. And I would say that over the last 30 years, say, Sinn Féin
yeah,
people have had the most appalling bloody things said about them in public and
yeah,
with no evidence. No evidence
yeah,
whatsoever. I remember Jerry Adams being interviewed on TV and guys calling this, that, and the other and saying, well, you can sue me if you want to, or you haven't sued anybody yet for saying this kind of thing. And he said, well, maybe I'll start with you. But he didn't.
yeah,
But now they have. Now Sinn Féin has
yeah,
made a decision that somebody says something they see as being libelous, they're going to take action. Now, this is a bit like J.P. Mcmanus in a way. This is the law. I mean, the person does the writing also has a
yeah,
duty not to libel the individual.
yeah,
And if somebody
yeah.
wrote bad stuff about me, I might feel pretty aggrieved. So, all right, it restrains the journalist. But, I mean,
Yeah,
everybody's restrained. You're restrained to drive on the left-hand side of the road. You're restrained not to take alcohol and drive. And likewise, you're
yeah,
restrained from writing whatever you might feel like writing about people. And if you write
yeah.
something that's not true and put it in public print, you're absolutely right that the person should take you to court if they want to.
Yeah, Jude, I don't remember the circumstances, like it's because I never took notes. But I remember many years, and I've told you this story before. Martin McGuinness is on, and there was something in one of the papers that was totally, completely, and I knew it was totally and completely untrue.
Mm.
And I says, Martin, why didn't you sue? And he looked. I remember he looked at me. He said, "Hey, Paddy, you for real?" He sort of thing. He says, "What do you think my chances?" Former IRA leader. He says they can say whatever they want about me, and he says I'm not going to get. So I remember at the time, but I think the first person actually, Jerry Adams. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been one of the Dublin papers said something about him. I remember that time he says, I am definitely going to sue because that is untrue.
Mm.
And it was a sort of a test case because he thought up until that, it had sort of been like the Wild West. They could say anything you like about any Sinn Féiner. And the basis was like, no matter what you say about them, it's no court in Ireland's going to convict them because the anti thing. Anyway,
Mm.
as far as I remember, Jerry won his case. And that's
Mm.
it. And by the way, I do agree with you. I don't necessarily agree with Micheál Martin and these guys. Dude, if I say something about you that is totally libelous, well, start again. If I say something about you, and I'm the journalist, the first rule of any journalist, if I get a libel letter or defamation case letter, can I defend it at court and court? And that's the test you should be putting in your head before you put it in the paper. And
Yeah.
if you can't, you shouldn't put it in the paper.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. This article, and this is a direct quotation now, this article
Yeah,
says journalists in Ireland are fully conscious of a legal environment described recently by the editor of this newspaper, that is Irish Times, described by the editor of this newspaper as a threat to democracy.
Yeah.
And I think, frankly, I think that's horseshit. You know, somebody's using, just like Mcmanus is using the laws to save himself a lot of money in tax. Likewise, people are entitled to defend their good name or go after people who have said something libelous. That's the law. And if you're not happy with that, you should change the law. But this notion that using the law is a threat to democracy, that's a contradiction in terms.
And the other thing as well, Jude, here's the thing. There's a very high bar on some of these cases. You remember if you're right, let's use Sinn Féin. Say you're a Sinn Féin TD and you take a case against the Irish Times, right? If anything goes wrong, Jude, you can be left with massive, massive costs. That's the first thing.
That's right.
Secondly, you have to get the bar on two senses. There's 12 people on a jury. You have to convince them that you were libeled. And maybe there's a couple sitting down there who would be far from the animus towards Sinn Féin mightn't be that great. So that's a risk you have to take. So if you won your case using the law, I don't see how that can be undemocratic.
Yeah, absolutely. I really, frankly, I think, how can I phrase this without being libelous? I think that there is a whiff, a possibility, an alleged scent of anti-republicanism in the Irish Times. There certainly is quite a number of...
Was it somebody on one of your blogs, or I can't remember the other day, said basically the Irish Times are consistently are consistent in only one thing, namely they're consistent attacks on Sinn Féin.
Well, I cannot remember last a week when there wasn't an article, and more frequently 2 or 3 articles which were attacking them. I just think it's sort of laughable because for the Irish Times to present the legal cases taken against them or their journalists as being a threat to democracy, what that's saying essentially is, oh, we're poor people. We'd lose our house, or we wouldn't have the money to defend ourselves. I would suggest that the Irish Times has got more money in their coffers than the Sinn Féin party has in their coffers. I'm not underestimating how much the Shinners have, but this poor me, they're really wrecking the whole system by putting into place or acting on the laws of the land. They must think people are stupid, to do that, to say this is a threat to democracy using the libel laws.
I think one thing I would agree with. Apparently, not only as it Mary Lou is suing, or I'm not quite sure who it is.
Yes, she is. She's suing the Irish. I can't remember. Yeah,
Irish Times, but they're also suing the journalists personally. I don't agree with that. You shouldn't be suing. That's like suing a school, and then suing the individual teacher. That shouldn't be on. I don't think Sinn Féin should be doing that.
Well, it's a difficult one.
They should be. A journalist is sent out to do a job. It's the editor and the newspaper's job then to make sure what appears. So it's not the reporter's job. They can only report by and large on what they see.
Well, I would partly agree with you, Pat, but that's that's not how it works, really. But
no, I know, but in the old days, very rarely did anybody sue an individual journalist. It was the organ that published it got sued.
Well, I'm not sure who's been sued or who Sinn Féin is suing.
No, Harry McGee and the apparently. I don't remember who's suing. They're suing the Irish Times and they're suing Harry McGee, who's
well. You see, the person who writes the article, the journalist, also has a responsibility.
Yeah, I'm accepting that, but Jude, a journalist also is sent out by his paper, and he's expected to do. I know.
It's a shared.
If you make a mistake, if you make a mistake in the classroom, are you responsible for every mistake you make in the classroom? No, yes. Do you end up in court?
Yes, I am. I am responsible for it, but also I would see it's sort of the shared responsibility of the school I'm working in and what I do in the classroom. And likewise, the journalists, the newspaper, let's say in this case, for whom they work is responsible, and you, the individual journalist who wrote the piece.
No, what happens in the classroom sort of stays in the classroom. What a journalist, if you put something and make a mistake, it's appeared in what is it?
Thing.
I don't know. Many people read the Irish Times, so it's not quite the same.
Yeah, I take a point. A couple of other little items, I don't know, in this article, I don't know if we want to pursue them or not, says that 52% said that media law and regulations was extremely or very influential in their work. This is journalists. 52% said media law and regulation was extremely or very influential in their work. Well, you know, that's like stating the bleeding obvious. You know,
Yeah.
you
But you
surely,
hold on. No, no, in America, there's this thing called absence of malice.
yeah.
If you can write something and you believe it to be true, and there's no enough goodwill in it,
Mm.
if you make a mistake or get something wrong, there's an absence of malice. And in the greater context of the thing that it was, it was responsible journalism. Here, you can have 99% right and make one mistake, and the one mistake is the thing that's going to, I was going to use a rude word, but that's the thing that'll f you up in court.
Yeah. How do you feel? Do you react? Whose side, as it were, are you on when you hear that 52% of journalists say media law and regulation was extremely or very influential on their work? Would you say fair enough, or would you say?
Jude, here's the thing: the reverse of what you're saying is, if journalists are looking over their shoulder all the time and watching, Jude, there's so many things in this country, including things like Charity Hoy.
Yeah.
And remember Robert Maxwell in Britain. Sir David English said one time that every time he got a solicitor's letter from Robert Maxwell, and he says he knew he was a crook and he knew what what they were at. But what do you call him, Sir Robert English or whatever his name was, said they had to give him an apology because if they went to legal action, he says he knew there was £1 million down the chute. Even though he knew Maxwell was a crook, he knew he was tampering with the funds and all the rest of it. But he says if you went to court, it was £1 million right away. So that's the other side of the laws of libel.
So which do you come down on then, Pat? In the end, I accept the point you're making. You know that you could lose your house or you could lose millions because
I think the laws of libel in this country need looking at it. To be fair to both, the day that media cannot look at what's going on in the country and hold people to account, that's not a great situation either. I think a lot of the laws were written at a different time. Sure, there's some of the laws were written in the 1850s. Jesus, dude, that's social mores have changed big time since then.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to think of there's a way whereby you could say sue someone for what you believed was libel on their part without somehow the possibility of that person losing their house or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you
I'm
see, there
wondering.
was a thing called the press council and I thought that,
Yeah,
where somebody who feels wrong can go to the press council and they make an adjudication if they find that Pat McGarry libeled Jude Collins, that on the next session or the next available edition of the paper, journalist Pat McGarry would like to apologize for comments made on an article which appeared on the 7th of June in regard to Jude Collins. There was a remedy, but very few people take that up.
Well, that's very good. Is there a press council in Ireland?
There is, but it doesn't seem to be used a lot.
Well, yeah. Well, that sounds to me very sensible. That I think that should be used as a first step, and then if people brazen it out, then you might want to resort to law. But anyway, I just think it's pigeons coming home to roost whenever they say, "Oh,
there's a lot of truth in that." And I think the substantive point you made it back earlier on. For years, Sinn Féin people who were guilty of nothing. People like Pierce Doherty were not in the IRA. Mary Lou McDonald was not in the IRA. And this sort of smearing them with something that happened, brought out something that happened 40 and 50 years ago to smear them and almost imply guilt by association. And people were using that for years. Now they have to stop and see if they do make that and they're getting sued for it and it's proven untrue and they have to own up. That's their hard luck. That's the law of the land.
Okay, well, that gives us a chance. We're running short of time now. Let me see what time it is. What's we got? We've got another
7 minutes.
7 minutes, maximum of 7 minutes. But we might get bored, and other people might get bored. I want to talk about this book of yours.
Well, that wonderful tome.
Actually, it is a bloody good read. A bloody good read, I can tell you now. And the way you've organized it, I think the chronology you follow, where you start, in your mid-career as editor, and then you're jumping back to the point when you're even just going into journalism. I just thought that movement and the chapters being so short as they were really works very well, very well. So there's all sorts of splendid things, and I've told you before that the writing's very good. But one of the chapters you deal with is during the Troubles. And
Yeah.
you mentioned, I've forgotten the exact instance, but it was a case where there was a press conference held, and it
Yeah.
was was it an IRA press conference?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just run it past us and tell us what your thoughts were then.
Yeah. Jude, there was back in the day. Here's this is the shorthand version or the pod history version.
Yeah,
A young guy, and it usually was a guy. There's very few women. I don't ever remember any women actually.
yeah,
They'd hold a press conference on a Thursday. Pat McGart, 22-year-old man from the Bogside, appeared at a press conference yesterday where he admitted passing on information to the RUC or the British Army or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And the deal was that if you went public and admitted that you were a tout, uh, that you were put out of town, the IRA would put you out of town and warning never to come back, and that was it.
yeah.
But anyway, one day they held the press conference, and usually, by the way, I should spread it. Radio 4 used to be there, Belfast Telegraph there, Irish News might be there, and all the rest, and so on. But there was also ones where only the Derry Journal would show up. So one of the ones was one day we sent up this young Siobhan McElhinney was her name, Siobhan Cunningham. She was then, she wasn't married, and there was a young fella admitted that he had been passed on for information. This was a Friday. He had appeared.
You give an account of this in the book, Pat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to clarify that point.
I sent Siobhan up to cover the thing, and she came back and says, "Yeah, Pat, your man admitted such and such." And as far as I remember, we had a photograph of him as well, and so on. And anyway, that was that. That was Thursday. It appeared. I'm not sure if it appeared in the front page on Friday. Derryman admits being tout and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that Sunday morning, I'm up in my mother and father's house, and the phone rings out in the hall, and something my mother shouts, "Pat, it's for you." So I go out and it's Siobhan, and she's really, really upset. She says, "Pat, that young fella's body's just been found, about 30 yards or 40 yards from her own home in the Bogside. They had executed him." And I remember I had a sick feeling in my stomach because I thought we, uh, I thought basically at that point, IRA had used us to just publicly justify what they were going to do. So I made it clear that afterwards to a lot of people that who had come down to the office, we will never attend a press conference like that again if you're going to pull a stunt like this. So I don't know if we ever really went to many more of those press conferences, but I remember feeling sort of responsible in a way because I thought, Jesus, we were used here big time and so on. And the wee girl herself, she knew the family, she knew the fella concerned, and she was really, really, really upset. And that was the sort of reality of it at the time.
Hmm.
By the way, I think he was called Mike Nicholson. He was an ITN reporter.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming home. I was back, and we were living in Culmore in Derry, and I remember I came down from Letterkenny and back in, and in the 6 o'clock news in ITN, he held up the Derry Journal. This is a type of brutality that's going on in a British city and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
and I was expecting an avalanche of, the Derry Journal and scumbag stuff. Now, in fairness, I think most people sort of understood what had happened. But I remember the time, Jude, it was not a nice feeling.
Well, I can understand that, Pat, and I know how sensitive you are, even in small things as well as big and serious things like this. But
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see you or the Derry Journal as bearing any responsibility. Your job as a newspaper, as an editor, as a reporter, is to report what is of interest to the public or in the public interest. Now, it
Yeah.
would seem to me that the discovery of an informer working within the IRA would be of interest to an awful lot of people, especially
Yeah.
people who knew him. So
Yeah.
you had in a sense, you had a duty to be there. And the people you might want to point the finger at were where were the other newspapers? Where was the Irish News? Where was the Belfast Telegraph and so on? Because this is
Yeah.
saying this guy, was passing information to the British Army at a time of real serious tensions.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the fact you said, okay, well, normally speaking, what happened was he'd be told to get out of town and never come back. But they didn't this time, they killed him. And that's a terribly sad thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't you. It wasn't you.
No, I'm aware of that.
That was a decision taken by the IRA. So
Yeah.
I really think you're being overly sensitive, Pat. You're overly sensitive.
But you know the point of that we were used to justify what was happening. In other words,
No, you weren't.
I
No,
think they
you weren't. Pat, you weren't. I don't think so. How could you be? How could you be? How could your presence in reporting this in any way justify what they did?
Yeah, but see, up until that, they had never executed anybody or killed anybody. So I think
Yeah.
this time, because your man admitted that they passed on information, so then
Yeah.
they're saying, well, now the public knows, and this guy, and it's been in the Journal Friday, so now we can, as they said back then, not him. But by the way, before we finish, there was a famous one in Derry, a guy called Raymond Gilmore. He was and the
I think I taught Raymond. You know, I think I taught Raymond Gilmore for short.
well, I will. There was a thing. There was graffiti on the wall. I knew Raymond Gilmore. Thank fuck he did not know me. There was about 40 people arrested one morning.
Okay, listen, there's nothing I can say can cap that one. Okay, Pat, we'll leave it at that.
All the
Sorry.
best, Jude.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jude. Bye. Bye. Good luck.